Ladies and gentlemen, just joining us on the live YouTube stream. What we're doing today is a webinar trying to give an overview of the variety of different options that parents have for their children, whether we choose ASD in school or our various ASD at home options. So we're going to move into our ASD at school options, and we'll start with Dan Barker, the Senior Director of Elementary Education.
Thank you, Alan. I'm Dan Barker, Senior Director of Elementary, and I'm going to talk a little bit about what ASD in school will look like this fall for our elementary students. I really appreciate the opportunity to get to talk a little bit about this and help parents and families understand who this might be the best choice for. This option is really the best for families who are super excited to get back to face-to-face learning, as close to that traditional experience as you remember and as everybody thinks of when you close your eyes and picture what elementary school is. The face-to-face or the ASD in-school model is designed using something called blended learning, and you're going to hear that term used a fair bit through this presentation and going forward for sure. So blended learning, the concept allows us to provide for instruction in the model that we're in right now, which is a high-risk model where we're not able to be face-to-face, but it also allows us the most flexibility in being able to pivot back to a more hopeful time in our hopefully near future when children and teachers can be in closer proximity to each other. So our model's designed around, again, the ability to present instruction essentially one of three ways, which is that face-to-face way, if our community health status gets itself to a point where we're able to have kids and teachers back in our public school buildings. And if not, in the way which we're going to start the school year, which is using a digital platform called Canvas. Many of our families would have experienced this in the spring, same platform, but it's going to look quite a bit different. Canvas in the spring was set up around us having to put it together in a very brief period of time. Canvas now is the same platform using material that we've had folks working on all summer to prepare. So in that not in-person high-risk model, the Canvas platform will allow an opportunity for teachers to provide a minimum of 4 live English language arts lessons a week and 4 live mathematics lessons a week. In addition to that, they'll be using that blended model that I talked about, where in addition to moving backward and forward in and out of risk statuses, they're actually merging content into the delivery option to make sure that the teachers are able to address all of the standards around English language arts, math, science, social studies, PE, health, art, and music. So this blended approach allows us to provide content that our students need to be successful and move it in and out of safety areas based on what's going on with community health. This model also is going to keep students together with that same group of children that they've been going to school with in their neighborhood school for a significant period of time. It's also going to have them working with the teachers who work in that school. So if you're a family who's really chomping at the bit to have us get back to normal school as you remember it, it's entirely possible that this ASD in school option is the best choice for you. Again, students and teachers will all be involved with each other in many of the same manners that they would have under a normal school year. Okay, and that's going to be ASD at home for the ASD at school in the elementary blended model.
All right, thank you, Dan. Appreciate it very much. Next, we're going to go to Kirsten Johnson-Strempler, Senior Director of Secondary Education, to get an overview of what middle and high school will look like.
All right. Thank you, Alan, for that introduction. Much of what you've heard my colleague, Mr. Barker, describe about elementary will be true at high school as well. This is the option that parents should select if they anticipate wanting to come back to school when our high risk environment moves into that medium risk level, where our COVID cases make it safe enough for us to come back face to face. So in order for us to do that at the middle and high school level, we wanted to create a situation where students could flow from a high-risk model where they're at home and doing some blended learning online, and then still maintain that connection with their teachers when they come back, and have a manageable caseload at all of these different risk levels, whether it's high, medium, or low risk. And so in order to do that, most students at middle school take 7 classes a semester, and 6 classes at high school a semester. We have instead opted to go to a quarter model this year to reduce the number of classes that kids are responsible for maintaining at one time. And this helps them stay on track better in a blended environment. And so students at both the middle and high school will take 3 classes per quarter this year, and in this offering. And so 2 of those courses for most students will be your core courses: English Language Arts, Social Studies, Math, and or Science. So the first quarter you would take 2 of those classes. We are recommending that we pair language arts or social studies with math or science to have a balanced approach to your education. And then the second quarter you would take the opposite of that. And then the first quarter you would take 1 elective also, and you would take a second elective second quarter. And so each of the quarters in the first semester you would have a total of 3 classes. And then by the time that you get to the end of the semester, you would still take your traditional number of classes and have 6 classes total that you've completed as a middle or high school student. So as a division, we're also doing all of our coursework through Canvas, much like elementary, and Mr. Barker mentioned. And so that is the computer platform that all of our classes will utilize. So it doesn't matter which course you're in, you have one platform to learn, and that will make it much easier for students to navigate this fall. So the other thing that's going to be a little bit different than what we've done moving forward is that students will maintain a regular school schedule of classes. So schools will publish their course schedules and their bell schedules, if you will, and then students will still attend classes by Zoom every day but Wednesday based on their class schedule. And so teachers will teach a 30-minute or longer lesson Monday, Tuesday, Thursday, and Friday. And then Wednesday is a day for students to catch up on their Canvas work. If they need to meet with a teacher individually or in a small group to get help, teachers will arrange those. It's also a time for teachers to meet with parents if parent conferencing is needed. And so it's really kind of a catch-up day for students, and they'll be working in their Canvas computer course shell is what we would call it on Wednesdays. So we will still be taking student attendance via Zoom while they're in class. And like I had mentioned before, Wednesdays are going to be an independent learning time and time for teachers to really work with parents and students in this platform of learning. So that is the blended model of middle and high school.
All right, just a quick follow-up though. So who's for parents who have questions about whether it's elementary or secondary, what's the best route, or who should they contact to just get more details, to learn more? What's the best route at this point?
So for the secondary level in particular, our counselors are back to school now, and so are our principals. So for the middle and high school level, the best person to contact is your student's counselor, and they can walk you through some of the questions that you may have, or if there's a course change or something along those lines that you'd like to get help with, they would be your first point of contact.
And Alan, for the elementary level, again, as Dr. Johnson said, we have principals and office staffs that are now back in their buildings, or at least monitoring that communication. So that would be the first step. If you have questions about what that model specifically looks like, or specific questions to your school or your student, you could start with the elementary school itself. Of course, if that isn't something that's working out, or you're not able to connect in a timely fashion, you can always contact our office here at Elementary Education, 742-4254, and one of us will help connect you with that school or get back to you with your answer as soon as possible.
Alrighty, thank you very much. Next, we'll hear from Christina Bellamy, the Director of K-12 Teaching and Learning, who'll go into a little bit more about the specific online curriculum for the blended model.
Great. Thank you so much, Alan. I'm Dr. Christina Bellamy. I'm one of the directors in the Teaching and Learning Department that oversees some core curriculum. Specifically, the core curriculum we'll be talking about today is ELA, mathematics, social studies, science. We'll also be touching on, in this brief chat that I'll have with you today, some elements of art, music, PE, health, and libraries. From the teaching and learning perspective, the ASD at school delivery model runs right alongside with our risk levels. So in a more hopeful time, when we are face-to-face, this will be physical classrooms, the way that we have known typical schooling to go. In a medium risk model, we'll be looking at blending the 3 different elements of live instruction face-to-face, recorded instruction, so opportunities for some things to be recorded and then families and students can access at a later time, and then live online activities. Currently, we are in a high risk, and so we will be returning in this high risk level for in ASD at school delivery, which is fully online. One of the changes or nuances from what we experienced in the spring as a response to our COVID pandemic to now is that instruction will not be supplemental or not count per se for elementary students. There will be grades given. We will be looking at making sure we've put a lot of time and effort into ensuring that curriculum is aligned, that students that are involved in specific programs like CTE, like ROTC, like Immersion, you'll be hearing from my colleague, Mr. Locke, here soon, will be able to take courses that are germane or are very important to those pathways, and that students will be getting the standards and the instruction that they need to continue to be successful. Okay, so as we continue on, I guess, along the Canvas course modeling here, those courses have been aligned to what you've heard Dr. Johnson speak about, which is the cohort quarter model. Previous slide, Alan, if you don't mind. I was not quite done with that one. Thank you, sir. I appreciate it.
Sorry about that.
No worries, it's all good. We're nimble. So all of our content that has been designed by Anchorage School District teachers, amazing support from our teachers. We had over 400 teachers working this summer to build meaningful, rigorous, and relevant content for the ASD at school delivery model, regardless of which risk level we were in. Very proud of the work and the time that they put in over the summer to make sure that our curriculum was integrated. And this will be used for all of our neighborhood schools, and some of our alternative schools will be using it as well. The emphasis will be placed in English language arts, math, science, and social studies. That will look a little different in secondary on how that integration runs versus elementary, but again, the emphasis is on those 4 core subjects. However, we still want to offer choice and find that very valuable in a student's well-rounded education. And so at all levels, K through 12, students will have opportunities in art, music, health, PE, and library as they would typically. Next slide, please. A feature that we are extremely excited about and find a lot of urgency around that is different from the spring is around the assessment that we're doing with our students to make sure that we are identifying first and foremost their strengths, their areas of that need more focus. I tend to not like the word weakness, but there are areas that need some more focus, and then how they're growing, both in reading and math. And we're doing this through iReady, which is a diagnostic tool that has a very close tie to the instruction that we do with students on a daily basis. So we will be assessing students for reading in grades kindergarten through 10th grade and specific classes of students that need a specific level of support in 11th and 12th grade. In math, we will be testing all students, kindergarten through 8th grade, using the iReady assessment, and then we'll be administering a different assessment for our 9th through 12th graders in math called ALEX. Again, the reason that this is so important is it helps us understand where we need to meet our students so that we can grow them this academic year. These programs have the instructional component that allows students to, after they've taken the initial diagnostic assessment, it places them in a program that's at their instructional level, so that when we are in times needing to, an online, so for example, Dr. Johnson talked about that Wednesday being a date that would be online for students, particularly for our 9th and 10th grade students in reading and our 8th grade students in math. This is a great opportunity for them to be accessing and utilizing the iReady instructional tool that will help them continue to progress and get practice at their instructional level. This approach really does help us intervene for students that might need a little bit more support and accelerate students that have shown that they are ready for more challenging curriculum. Both teachers and students with these programs will have online access to review student progress, and teachers are able to, from the assessment, make groupings and schedules so that they can meet with students in small groups around areas of focus or acceleration as needed. So from the curriculum and instruction side of the house, that is what ASD at school looks like for us. Thanks.
Dr. Bellamy, thank you so much for that thorough overview. That's super, super helpful. And me as a parent too, as I'm kind of navigating this as well. So thank you very much. Next, I'd like to hand it off to Brandon Locke, our Director of World Languages. And we've received so many questions about how will immersion work if our students aren't actually in school. So here to provide some insight into that, both for elementary and secondary, is Brandon Locke.
Thank you, Alan. So I have the privilege of overseeing all of the World Language and Immersion programs for the Anchorage School District. And so I'm going to talk to you about elementary immersion first, and then we'll transition into secondary immersion. One thing that we've not yet talked about on this webinar is the district's new virtual school. So I will sort of provide a little bit of a precursor to that presentation as I talk about immersion. So as my colleagues have already mentioned, there is the risk levels of low risk, medium risk, and high risk for what ASD in school looks like. And as you know, we are starting at the high risk level, which means that we are fully online. So all of our classes will be online, regardless of the outcome, hopefully past COVID or as the numbers go down. In the medium risk category, our immersion schools will have the students participating in cohorts where the students would go 2 days a week. So rather than the traditional model of having the students split half of their day in the English classroom and half of their day in the target language or the immersion language classroom, students would spend 1 full day in the immersion language classroom and 1 full day in the English partner teacher classroom, followed by 3 days of e-learning or distance delivery learning. The students would be in cohorts either a Monday, Tuesday with the following 3 days at home, or they would be in a Thursday, Friday cohort with Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday at home. And then again, our low risk would be all students in school 5.5 hours a day, and they would be split in between the English partner teacher classroom and the target language classroom. For those parents or families that choose to go with the new ASD Virtual School, that is an option for any content that would be taught by the English partner teacher, which really would be English, language arts, and math. And so the students would participate in that ASD Virtual School for the ELA and the math, and then they would participate in the in-school options, depending, of course, on the risk level for their immersion content. So that would be the language arts, for example, let's just say Japanese language arts, as well as the science and the social studies at the elementary level that are taught in the immersion language. For those families who choose to do the ASD virtual for all instruction, it would be similar to auditing an immersion classroom. And the reason that we say that is because all of our elementary immersion content is created in-house by our elementary immersion teachers. There is no, in fact, we are one of only 4 Russian immersion programs in the entire nation. So finding an already prepared digital program in Russian immersion is really not possible. So what we would do is we would have the students being able to access all of the online components that the teacher is creating and putting online, but yet they wouldn't actually come to the school for any face-to-face instruction with their immersion classroom teachers. And because our elementary immersion programs are considered choice programs and are lottery-based, it's not possible to actually have students participate in 2 lottery-based or choice programs. And so at the elementary level, an option of splitting between an immersion program and, say, a charter school such as Family Partnership is not an option at the elementary school level. Moving to the secondary level, our secondary programs include 2 programs, 2 courses at the middle school level and then 1 course at the high school level. So as Dr. Johnson shared about the quarters and taking 3 classes per quarter, if we're talking about ASD in school for immersion, the students at the middle school level would take their immersion language arts course during quarters 1 and 3, and they would take their social studies course, which is taught in that immersion language, during quarters 2 and 4. That way we have the opportunity to highlight to really set a precursor to the social studies content by really providing some heavy language at the beginning of the school year. Those 2 courses were truly designed to be integrated, so there may be some aspects of social studies that come through in the language course, but really for the purposes of scheduling, the students would take 1 immersion course per quarter. And then at the high school level, again, it is 1 course per grade level, 1 course for 9th grade immersion, 1 course for 10th, and so on. And those would be quarter-based, so and would fall into the elective category that Dr. Johnson spoke of. For the students who are choosing the ASD virtual for their non-target language, similar to the elementary level, they would take the ASD virtual courses for all of their classes, with the exception of their immersion class that they would still attend in school, depending, of course, on the risk level. And then something that is different at the secondary level that doesn't happen at the elementary level is the single course enrollment option that is available to students. So a student could be fully enrolled at, say, Frontier Charter School, but through the single course enrollment may choose to take a specialized course in a different program, for example, let's say Japanese immersion. Students would also at the secondary level have the option of participating in either ASD virtual or their homeschool or correspondence school for all instruction. However, because there is no pre-existing curriculum for our immersion programs, as I mentioned, the students would have the opportunity to not take a class in their immersion language this particular school year if the family decided that they just did not want to go back to the school at all. Now, we are looking and working with our IT folks and some other sort of problem solvers to figure out how we can potentially use webcams or other tech support to make that last bullet point that I just spoke of a non-issue. We are still in the process of working through that. And I know that one question that I've seen come up multiple times this I was going to say this spring, but we're already in August, is the question about their immersion cord. Will my students still get their immersion cord even if they're not in the program this particular school year? And the answer is yes. We are not going to penalize any students. We recognize that the immersion programs are a 13-year commitment and that we are in a worldwide pandemic. So regardless of what grade the student is in this year, when the student would get to their senior year of high school and get ready for graduation, the student would not be penalized, and yes, would receive their immersion completion cord in the event that they chose not to take any immersion classes this particular school year. And that is the end of my immersion presentation.
Right. Well, thank you everyone for that. So that, ladies and gentlemen, that was sort of an overview of ASD in school. So if parents are looking to basically keep their kids in their school with the teachers that they know, if we started in a high-risk category, we are starting in a high-risk category, that's really the overview of what you might see. Now we're going to transition to ASD at home. So a lot of parents might not be comfortable sending their students back for quite a while after we get back into maybe a medium risk category. And so ASD has put together a number of options. We have several current options, but we've also added a new option to give parents a choice and that they can opt into. So that's a good segue. I'd like to introduce Carol Boatman. She's the new director of Learning Innovation, and she'll talk about ASD Virtual.
Good evening. Yes, I will be talking about ASD Virtual Program, which is ASD at home. And a key component for this, and one of the reasons it has come about, is for those parents who want to still be connected to their neighborhood school, but don't feel safe having their kids go back to school no matter what the risk level is. So this allows your student to be connected to the school. So if you did, say, want to participate in one class or do after school activities, you'd have that ability to, because you would stay connected to the neighborhood school, but you will do a different online learning. So for K through 5 students, we will be using an online platform called Calvert Learning. And it has lots of virtual labs, assessments that you do to mastery. And it's meaningful, and it has summative assessments that guide you through the curriculum. Both of these, or this program specifically, engages students with an interactive approach to learning. For 6th through 12th grade, we will be using APEX for core classes and eDynamics for electives. And if your student is in ASD Virtual Program, we will follow the same model for classes as you would if you were at school. So you would have 2 core classes and 1 elective first quarter, and then 2 core classes and 1 elective second quarter. We will provide a consistent and reliable plan for students and families. And what we mean by that is the platform will stay online. And we will use the same platforms through the whole school year, or as long as your student is in ASD Virtual Program. We offer courses that align to the learning standards, whether you're in K-5 or 6th through 12th. And we ensure that the secondary courses meet NCAA and graduation requirements, which is really key, especially if you're in high school and want to go to college afterwards. This is really important to know and understand that the programs we're providing for you allow you that opportunity and meet those needs. We provide resources and training to support parents as learning coaches for their students. I know that K through 5 parents, the questions that I've had is they're really wanting to know what their role is specifically for their student when they're at home. And a key component of this is, and one of the reasons you might be choosing this is you want to have an active role in your student's education. And Calvert Learning talks about, they talk about daily work of 3 to 5 hours for work on the different, on the different courses. So English language and for math and your elective, you would do that balance. The great thing about this program is you have flexibility, meaning you can do it at your pace, in your space, and at your time. We will provide, our virtual teachers will have training to engage students and support online learners. And our ASD virtual teaching will be, all of our teachers will be state certified, and they will use a variety of real-time and self-paced activities to engage students in their learning, which may include face-to-face Zoom sessions, self-paced assignments and quizzes, online discussions, both text and video, support with online materials, whether the parent needs support or the student needs support, the ASD virtual teacher is there to help, And we will provide support with online materials and track progress for students with academic goals. If they are struggling, we have different ways to help. For K through 5 Calvert Learning, we have a supplemental piece that goes with it called Exact Path. And that program allows you to advance students or give additional instruction if they're struggling. And Apex and eDynamics, especially for the core, which would be Apex, the teacher has the ability to go in and make some adjustments. Students have the ability to go in and retake a quiz if they need to. So there's different ways to help support the students. And the ASD virtual teacher, their role is to help you facilitate your students' learning. But a key thing of it is that it's at your pace, at your students' pace, and you help guide and put that together. One of the key things that will be important is the communication that will come from the ASD virtual teacher. They're going to work with you as you are going through these programs and as you are moving forward. Another key important piece of this is for the ASD virtual is you get to stay at your neighborhood or choice school. You will continue to receive school communication from your school. You will have the opportunity to participate in activities like clubs and athletics, and you get to access academic planning and graduation support. All of these pieces come together to give you an option for if you want to stay at home and be an active role with your student and the learning that is taking place. It's important to understand with the ASD virtual program that it is all online, whether you're kindergarten through 12th grade, and they will be using different platforms, either Calvert Learning or the Apex and eDynamics. But we will have an ASD virtual teacher to help support your student and support you as you move through these different types of curriculum and provide training also.
Thank you, Carol. So I've heard this question a bunch of different times and ways, and kind of even as a parent myself. And I think over the course of your presentation, I think you hit on really a lot of the benefits there. But just to kind of lay it out, I know that if I'm sending my student to our neighborhood school, they're going to be online and we're going to have a role in that process. So because of that, what advantage or what difference or why would I then choose, or what would be the benefit in your mind to choose the ASD virtual? What is that key distinguishing factor for parents that may kind of look at it at glance and say, I don't necessarily understand the difference here?
I think a key component is that it's a standalone program for K through 5. So we will be using a virtual learning program that many districts throughout the United States have used. And it allows you to have that consistency, the way that it's implemented and how it's set up. It allows you to have flexibility. It gives you suggested schedule. It also gives you activities to do with students, like if your student is just can't move anymore, or what we call has had too much screen time, then they give you activities and suggestions to help with that piece. So I think a big thing with the ASD virtual program is we have these different tips that are available for parents to help be a part of that. And it's not changing from different modalities. So if you choose ASD in school, you would start with e-learning, and then if the risk changes, then you would go into the classroom setting, and it would be using a different format. So parents might not like that necessarily for their students, and ASD Virtual allows you to consistently stay with the same modality of teaching.
Okay, thank you so much. That was really helpful.
Thank you.
So kind of shifting gears a little bit, and a lot of folks within the district and parents may or may not realize that the ASD has a number of pre-established correspondence and homeschool programs, and we're going to offer an overview of those right now. First being Paideia Correspondence School, followed by Frontier Charter School, and then Family Partnership Charter School. So I'll introduce Doug Gray, the principal of Paideia, for his overview.
Great, thanks, Alan. So the slide you can see in front of you, that's really, that's the commonalities that you're going to find between Family Partnership, Frontier, and us. So there's definitely some things that are very similar in a homeschool model. And so it's really for the parent to kind of do some research and look at, well, what's the best fit? Because then we do have some things that are a little bit different. And so for Paideia, one of the things that's a little bit different for us is that, we still use the ASD structures, but we still have adopted a homeschool philosophy. So, we still are looking at trying to build flexible and customized academic experiences for our students, but we still kind of probably use a lot more of input from what's happening in an ASD school. So, a lot of times homeschool families have the opportunity to pick curriculum that's meets their family's needs. We take a little bit different approach that, we try to guide families into curriculum that we feel personally at Paideia that we're experts in and that we can support. So some of the students that we kind of look for, that we look to support, or that come to us, are students that are looking to be dually enrolled in either another public or private school. So we do have some families that look to access us for dual enrollment just because of a scheduling issue. They're looking for some smaller school setting. They're looking for that homeschool experience. They still want to be, have their child at home, but they want some teacher guidance. And that's kind of where we might come into play. And with that is when a parent does and a child does come and meet with us, they're paired up with an advisory teacher. And that is something similar between all three schools. That we, you, the family, and the child meet with this advisory teacher, and that's really their contact person. That's the person that's really going to help support them in looking at the curriculum, looking at what they need, what does the academic plan look like for them, and how can we support that, and what does that look like at home? Because we are homeschool, so families really are the primary driver in what happens. And so we're there to help answer questions and provide support. And that's really what that advisory teacher does. And so when they meet with the advisory teacher, they're going to look at developing a student learning plan. And this is really the plan that really does outline what the student's year is going to look like. And they, it's a fluid document in the sense for us, because it's something that we sit down at the beginning of the year. It's usually about an hour meeting with each family to go over the curriculum that we're looking at, but it's also looking at what are some homeschool experiences, because part of homeschool isn't necessarily just being at the home itself. It's also looking out into the community, what resources are out there that parents might want, what are some of the passions or interests that that child has that we want to explore with that in that setting. And so that student learning plan is really kind of designed to focus that area. Like I said, it doesn't have to be fluid. I mean, it is fluid. We don't all, we might sit down and we might think we have the greatest plan ever. And then 3 weeks later, we realize, nope, that's not going to work. And so we will meet with that family and redesign what it is that we need to do. And that's really the nice thing about having the advisory teacher there, because that is the point of contact. That is, some of our families, they're ready to go. They have everything outlined. They just need our guidance and allotment funds, and they're off. And we might meet with them in August, and then we won't really necessarily might not meet with them until the end of the semester, in December. Other families, we're really going to help you work through that process, because they didn't know that they might need it to homeschool, but here they are. And so they might need a lot more support. So we're looking at ways that we can help offer parent workshops, offer opportunities for parents to ask questions. We do informational meetings for families to talk about, hey, this is what homeschool looks like. Because some families really even have the simple questions of just like, what should I set up my house to look like? And so those are some things that we can help process through. So, at the K2 level, I mean, it is important to know for us, the parents really are doing the heavy lifting. We pretty much look towards a paper and pencil curriculum when we're supporting that level. So families really are the ones that really need to know to be able to implement that type of curriculum. We do offer some online pieces, but we do feel at the K2 level that that paper, pencil, tactile piece is really important. So, and we'll work with families on that, and we'll let them know, we do say roughly 30 to 45 minutes a day per content area, 4 days a week. And that's kind of like the curriculum that we use is set up for that. It is set up for 4 days. because we don't want families to feel like it is just sitting there and doing just only direct instruction, that we are really looking at ways to get families out to explore the environment that's around them so that they can build upon what they are learning at home. You know, 3 through 5, it's a gradual release of control. We are slowly letting the kids work a little bit more independent. We are looking for maybe some online opportunities where students can be self-guided and self-paced, but still with parents' oversight, and then of course our help and support there as the advisory teacher. At the high school level, we offer enriched virtual classes. So those are classes that are going to meet 2 times a week. They're going to be meeting online. They have an instructor. It's not cramming 5 days of work in 2 days, but it is looking at ways to provide some direct instruction opportunities while the students then go out and still do the high rigor of work that they need to do on their own. With that, we offer independent study classes where the students meet with the advisory teacher and they might have a passion that they're interested in, and we're going to sit with them to figure out how we can build on that so that they can earn credit for that, because that's important at the high school level. We offer those asynchronous classes, which are the classes where students can work on their own time, at their own pace. They still need to finish because we do work under a semester model. So students have from August 31st to December 11th to complete those classes. But they, you know, if we have a student that likes to work late at night, they can take those classes and they can do those late at night. If we have early morning kids, they can do it early morning. So it's up to them. There's still a person that's a teacher that's attached to that class, but the student is doing it at their own pace, their own time. That instructor is there just to help answer questions, do some grading, do some checking in, making sure that they're logging in and doing the work that they need to do. Because we do try to provide a lot of oversight. So like I said, the big curriculum that we use at the K-8 level is Bookshark. We do use other things, but that is pretty much our main curriculum that we use. And then at the high school level, we are pulling in some of the resources that you might find at a traditional high school. And then the teachers are there to help supplement that. We do use Canvas as our platform, so that would be very similar across the board. So families are similar with that. And we have found that that's a great tool in many areas for us to be able to communicate with parents, to communicate with students, and also kind of keep a check-in of where students are in one place where we do keep all of our, the curriculum. So, and then, yeah, so that's kind of like where we are in a nutshell. And so I know, you know, some things are going to be similar and then some things are going to be different. I will say we are going to do a information parent meeting on Wednesday at 12 o'clock. And if anybody is interested, it is, you can find the link on our webpage.
All right. Thank you, Doug. Again, that's Wednesday for the parent meeting. It's on Paidea's webpage. I'd like to transition to Jerry Finkler, the principal of Frontier Charter. Give us an overview of his program. Jerry, you there? I think you're muted still.
Oh, please forgive me. I did that. Hi, I'm Jerry Finkler, and I just wanted to introduce you to our program. The parents that we serve primarily are independent homeschooling families like my own. Back in 1996, when we began, we were on our own. And after a couple of years, my wife and I came alongside of a publicly funded program that provided us more resources and basically information on curriculum than we had ever imagined is out there. And why nowadays there's such a rapidly developing set of curricula. I mean, it's just that there's more added each year. And so at Frontier, the teachers and I are focused primarily on curating curriculum. Okay, so when parents join our program, to help them achieve academic excellence, which is what our goal and motto is, we introduce them to things they've never imagined is out there. For instance, we just had a parent send their child to Princeton on a full ride scholarship. This is like 3 years ago. And what was it that worked so well for them? Well, the state of Pennsylvania, they require all homeschooling families to fit within the state homeschool program. And one of the consequences to that is their AP online courses, which it's a distance learning model, and they're very high quality. So we recommend that to families. We're like a clearinghouse, sharing what we learned from great families like that. Why there's a lot of choices at Frontier. One of the things that parents often like to do is use a standard or traditional homeschooling book, let's say for English language arts, and then they'll ask us how they can bolster that with, let's say, one family I know went ahead and added a Thursday virtual Latin class to their 6th grade girls curriculum. So what she did was she would log in, the teacher was in Boise, Idaho, classmates in New Zealand, California, Alaska, there was a half dozen kids all over the place. Now, if you asked that student today, she'd tell you she didn't really like it because she had to work so hard. But you see, by putting another teacher in their life to help the homeschool mom out, why she was homeschooling all week, getting ready for that Latin class, and the end result was why that girl has her sentence structure down, you know? So our families are looking to us to share, you know, what's out there. And we've worked for a number of years with just so many colleges and high schools, and even Stanford University. And by the way, we proctor for all these universities and high schools around that Stanford. I became the proctor for those guys. And the idea was we had an 8th grade girl who had applied to that school, their high school program, and took a biology class. And why I looked at all the work samples and then accepted the grade from Stanford and put it on the ASD transcript. But talk about teach across the curriculum. She had a solid biology class that had a lot of writing and the arts in it. And so, I mean, the list goes on and on and on. So that's what we do best. We curate curriculum, and then I make sure that our teachers are trained in what the newest and latest curricula. For instance, this summer we really put our minds to researching what online programs offer social, that whole social component for the social learner, you know, so the student isn't just on the computer doing the work, but they also can work for put another teacher in their life along with other classmates. And why we've come up with quite a bit of stuff. And for example, just one example, I talked to BYU. I've been asking them for a number of years, when are you going to come up with an NCAA approved online curriculum? Well, it just so happens that they're rolling out classes this fall. And did you know that to meet NCAA standards, they had to add a social component to it, so that not only were students working at home, but they were getting online and meeting with other students. And also there was a teacher cheerleading them and having high expectations for them to produce, you know. So yeah, and then, you know, Frontier does basically what all the other homeschool programs do, is support of parents, offering flexibility and funding. But that's where we pride ourselves, because why, that's what helps parents the most. Thank you.
Great. Thank you, Jerry. Appreciate that overview. And finally, we'll talk to Dr. Jessica Parker, the principal of Family Partnership Charter School.
Hello there, I'm Jessica Parker, the principal at Family Partnership, and we are a K-12 homeschool program, very similar to Frontier because we're charters. The word charter means that we are run by a board, mostly of parents, and so they really guide our decision making. And we service families and help them with their homeschool options. Very much like the other two programs, we give them a teacher who sits down with them and directs their educational plan. And we give them an allotment, which helps with the finances of buying books, because it can be very expensive. So this program, who is it good for? It's good for families who are willing to do some heavy lifting, because homeschooling is definitely a harder option. There's a lot more responsibility on the parents. And unless you have an independent learner, so it can work if you have a high schooler who can work independently, but really you need to have someone in the home who can manage the education. So we have lots of cool bells and whistles. You know, we have usually in a non-COVID season, we have field trip Fridays, so homeschool families can hang out with each other. And We have a library of curriculum that families can sort through. Unfortunately, we don't have all of those bells and whistles, but what we do offer is incredible quality teachers who, most of them, like 90% of our teachers, are homeschool moms, just like you guys out there that are looking for help and advice. So that is our program in a nutshell.
All right, thank you, Dr. Parker. So I guess I'll ask the same quick question of you all. For those really looking to get more information, I know if folks go to the website and choose ASD at Home, all three of these programs, all four of the programs, Virtual, Family Partnership, Frontier, Data are all linked there. But what would be the best way, recommendation for parents to get more info and really learn about the program?
Our website, for sure, each of us,
Yep.
and call our numbers and speak to our front desk. And of course, you can always just send any of us an email, and we're all really good about replying as quick as possible. I will say that we have all three of the homeschool programs have received a surge in enrollment. So please be patient with us, because it is taking us a little bit of time to get back to you, but we will get back to you.
All right. Well, thank you all very much, all of our distinguished panelists. I kind of want to close by saying again that Dr. Stock reiterated, we understand that there's a lot of challenges and we understand that there's a lot of questions. And this is hopefully useful in providing that foundational information and giving parents a good starting point to begin that and continue that investigation as they try to decide what they want to do for navigating back to school. ASD is also publishing a couple times a week a short video series called Airplane Arms, navigating back to school. And those are 10 to 15 minute spots on focused topics of interest to parents as we're trying to figure out how are we getting back to school in this difficult, high risk time. Our website, asdk12.org, is frequently updated. If you go right to the main landing page, it takes you right into ASD in school, ASD at home, and all the different information there that will help you navigate and learn as much as you possibly can. So on behalf of Dr. Bishop, the superintendent at ASD, and Dr. Stock, the deputy superintendent, I want to thank everybody for participating and for watching. And we'll post this up here shortly, probably later on tonight or tomorrow, so that you can go back and watch at your leisure and rewind and dive into all the different areas. So thank you so much for tuning in. We appreciate it, and good luck this fall.